So good morning. And on behalf of the Office of Mission Ministry, the Haggerty Museum of Art, and the Faber Center, we warmly welcome you to today's conversation. We're delighted to open up one of the new pieces of art on Marquette's campus. Our roots say we are sisters, an image of hope. And that's part of our theme that we're weaving throughout this Mission Week, looking at this journey of hope. And today we'll look at how art, something in how it inspires the human spirit to look forward in positive and constructive ways, to see how we're connected, and that theme of hope moves us forward in a positive direction. And so before we begin today's conversation, I'd like to start with an opening prayer. And at this point, I'd like to invite one of our Marquette students, a junior, Ben Lash, who's in theater and cognitive sciences, to lead us in this morning's opening prayer. So Ben.
All right. Dear Lord, when current events and circumstances lead us to worry, help open our minds to hope. When pain and suffering lead us to despair, help open our hearts to hope. For even though the world may overwhelm us, our hope in you inspires. Hope moves us from fear to courage, from grief to comfort, from blame to acceptance, from resentment to understanding. Lord, allow hope to work through us. Let us share hope with those who feel alone. Let us give hope to those who feel oppressed. Let us find hope for those who are lost. And when we seek common ground, let hope unify us all. Lord, we ask you to stay with us always. You, the everlasting God, our ever-present hope. Amen.
Thank you, Michael, for that introduction, and Ben for the prayer this morning. Welcome, everybody. We're really excited to have you here. My name is Jackie Plack. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I work in the Office of Institutional Diversity and Inclusion here at Marquette. I'd like to start first and foremost by acknowledging the fact that even though we're meeting virtually, our campus is situated on the traditional homelands of the Menominee, the Potawatomi, and the Ho-Chunk Indian nations, who have known this land as a relative for millennia and who remain our hosts on it. We also recognize the presence in Milwaukee of tribal members from 9 other Wisconsin nations, including the Oneida Nation, the Stockbridge-Muncie Community Band of Mohicans, the Brothertown Nation, and the 6 Ojibwe nations, namely the Red Cliff Band, the Lakota Band, the Lac du Flambeau Band, the Bad River Band, the Sakagon Chippewa Community, and the St. Croix Chippewa Indians. We also recognize Milwaukee as home to a large and resurging urban Indian community that includes diasporic Indigenous people from around the United States and Canada, as well as from the global South, the Pacific, Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. We're going to introduce our guests in just a moment, but first I wanted to provide a little more context around the Mural project for those of you who may not be as familiar. A campus mural was actually envisioned long before this year. Students from Marquette student government, administrators, Haggerty Museum of Art staff, and others were in conversations about this for some time. But the idea really got new life breathed into it after the University Committee on Equity and Inclusion conducted a cultural audit of our built campus environment in the fall of 2019. So this audit was meant really to gain insight into the degree to which the university provides a welcoming physical environment for its students and employees. Physical spaces tell stories, whether we intend them to or not. They can send messages about who is recognized and celebrated, and they can have a profound impact on a person's sense of belonging in a place. So some of the key takeaways from this cultural audit were that, unsurprisingly, in many spaces on campus, there was a lack of diverse representation, as well as just a lack of imagery or color or warmth in general. So the campus mural resurfaced as one of the possible action steps that the cultural audit subcommittee discussed. And so we reconvened a committee that included also representatives from our Black Student Council. So the goals for the mural project were to showcase the diversity, the richness, and the complexity of the Milwaukee and Marquette communities, reflect the current cultural moments, particularly around racial justice, highlight that there is a shared responsibility for transformation And then also acknowledge the past, honor the present, and envision a hopeful and more just future, and also in keeping with the theme for this week. So at this time, I'd like to just share a time-lapse video of the creation of the mural. So Mary, go ahead and share that video. It's really kind of incredible when you see it in quick succession like that. So with that context and without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mauricio Ramirez, an artist who specializes in large-scale site-specific painting. His work, which has spanned across the United States and Canada, explores social and cultural experiences within diverse communities and speaks to the relationships that coexist in our society, intercultural histories, familial and community experiences, and then also broader shared connections through social movements over time. Mauricio, we're just absolutely thrilled with the results of your project. And I also want to say thank you for taking the time to be here today to participate in this dialogue, which I think is a really important part of this community engaged project. I'd also like to introduce two of the models, two of the young women who inspired the images that are seen on the side of Varsity Theater, Gadira Yesh and Wase Williams. And Wase is joined today by her mother, Audra Williams. So at this time, I'd like to just have each of you introduce yourself. We'll start with Mauricio, and then Gadira, and then Wase and Audra. Just say, you know, your name, your graduation year. Wase, I know that you're still in high school, so if you could just introduce yourselves at this time.
Cool. Yeah, well, thank you for the introduction and thank you for sharing that video. Yeah, my name is Mauricio Ramirez and I'm a visual artist specializing in murals and interior exterior projects. And I mainly try to focus on community and diversity within a lot of my murals. It seems to be like the theme of a lot of the projects that I do when working with, you know, special communities such as Marquette. But yeah, you know, that's pretty much myself in a nutshell. I have some strong roots here in Milwaukee, and I grew up between Milwaukee and Chicago. So,
Thank you. Gadira?
Hi, thanks for having me. And that was a beautiful time lapse, kind of being able to see the beginning to the end. My name is Gadira Yesh, born and raised in Wisconsin, Milwaukee. I went to Marquette, class of 2016. I majored in biomedical sciences.
Wonderful. Wase and Audra?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Wase. My name in Ojibwe means shining water, and I am here from Milwaukee. I am graduating high school this May, and I am hoping to attend Marquette with going in with a criminal justice degree.
Bujuba Messianic Indishnikas, Nagizi and Dodem. So hello everyone, my name is Audra Williams. My spirit name is Floating Cloud. I am from the Eagle Clan. And yeah, so I work at Indian Community School as a Our-Ways coordinator. Yeah, so that's about it. Glad to be here.
Well, we're just thrilled to have you all here. So we're just going to jump in right now with some questions for our guest speakers. And then at the end, we'll have some time for some Q&A from the folks who are participating. So if you do have questions along the way and you'd like to, throw them in the chat, that's fine. Otherwise, we can also call on people near the end. So I'd like to start with the students. Just tell us a little bit about yourself. So you can address questions like where you grew up, what led you to Marquette, what you're involved in school, or what you were involved in when you were on campus, hobbies. Just tell us a little bit about yourself. So we'll start with Wesay.
Okay. I attended Indian Community School. I graduated in 2017. So I've grown up in Native American setting schools. So when I attended ICS, I grew up learning my Ojibwe language. And so that's what I kept on doing that throughout high school. And I hope to keep doing that through college. Right now in high school, I am in AP art. I've been in art since freshman year, and I hope to keep doing that also at Marquette. But Marquette, I've been involved in different group projects. They were all from Indian Community School, so whenever my family would go there and attend events, I would be there, helped out with community work. But with this mural, it got me more involved with the campus. And so from there, also being my senior year, after the mural project, I took a tour of Marquette. I applied there and got in. So I am excited to be attending there and to see what the future has.
Wonderful. We'll be lucky to have you. Kadir?
So I was born and raised in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm a first generation. My parents immigrated here shortly after they got married, so they're from Palestine. So I went to private school at the mosque my entire life, so elementary, middle, high school, and then I moved on and went to Marquette, and I was part of the EOP program, which kind of stemmed my entire journey at Marquette. I met a lot of new people there, even though there aren't that many minorities on campus, I was became friends with everybody at EOP and kind of forged all my bonds there. Still friends with all of them till this day. Kind of involved a lot, even though I was a BISC student, a BISC major, and that kind of took up a lot of my time. I was part of a lot of different social justice organizations on campus. There is an organization, Students for Justice in Palestine, I was a part of, and all of the other different ones on campus. Graduated in 2016, and then I went on to PA school after that, and been working for the last 2 years, and here I am.
Awesome. Again, we're really lucky to have you here today. Mauricio, if you could also address, in terms of your story, how did you end up creating art, and what led you to create art that infuses themes of diversity?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, I always grew up with, a box of crayons by my side. I can remember since I was 5, 6 years old, trying to emulate drawings that I would from video games. I would try to create these colored creative sheets, kind of emulating video games, and then that kind of grew on to just always wanting to replicate stuff. Growing up, we never really had luxury, items and stuff. So a lot of times I would just kind of just draw it, that was the way for me to kind of have it. So if we didn't have something, I would draw it. But as I got a little bit older, towards my adolescent years, I had some older cousins here in Milwaukee that kind of introduced me to, graffiti stylized letters. And that was kind of my introduction to I guess, design and, color theory, and just kind of being introduced through that. But I think after a while, as I got older, I realized the power of art and how it could, signify, certain ideas and concepts. And I think once I realized, that, it was a little bit during college, after college, I realized that I thought that I needed to be a little bit more responsible with my artwork if it was going up in public places. And, that's when I started to devote my time and energy into, creating exterior murals. I've every job that I've held, up until this point is always revolved around paint. I've there's been seasons where I've painted houses, I've painted private jets, whatever it may be. I interned for artists and stuff, but it always had to deal with paint and stuff. And I knew this is what I wanted to do. So even though if I wasn't, working on my artwork and, I would needed, basically a job to like support everything that I was doing, I would always make sure that it was in like some sort of like paint setting, it didn't matter what, so I ended up learning all these different applications. And then once I had, the skill set down, now I knew it was time to really focus on, concepts and theories and, more of the important stuff, that's gonna really be inside, people's heads when they see it and stuff. So, yeah.
I just love the image of a small Mauricio walking around with a box of crayons everywhere. I love that. So Mauricio, since we're on you right now, what was your inspiration for this particular piece of art?
Sure. So, I reviewed the request for proposals and, I think Marquette's mission aligned with the work that I was currently creating, which is, creating work that will allow people that are usually, invisible in settings and, give them the platform to be visible and, to give them confidence and stuff. And, with this project, we just kind of aligned ourselves, everything that, the proposal wanted, I was doing for the past 2 or 3 years. And so it just kind of led up to, it was just a really, kind of aligning of the stars and stuff. But I really enjoyed, working with everybody and kind of seeing how a project like this not only just relies on myself, but it relies on, 10 to 15, an entire student body basically, and how they included them in the voting process. But yeah, no, it was amazing. Are you kidding me? It was probably one of my favorite projects to work on, just because of the creativity, the mission behind it, the statement behind the work, and just how we were able to kind of collaborate with so many important people during this pandemic. I think it's magical how we all pulled it off, like during the pandemic, and we were able to create, this like beam of light during this like dark period and stuff. So
I love how you describe that because that's exactly how I feel about it. It was quite incredible that it was pulled off in this, crazy time of social distancing, and even the community paint day when students and faculty and staff and administrators and community members came out and worked together safely, socially distanced, to help put this together. It was just an amazing process from start to end. Now, I remember when I was on the subcommittee that helped kind of vet the proposals as they were coming in. And I remember that your original proposal had 2 faces, and they were kind of more generic looking faces. The idea was the same, the basic concept was the same. But then we had this idea of expanding representation, which was feedback actually from the voting process. Like, why just 2? Why can't we have more faces, more representation from different backgrounds? But then there was also this piece of getting real live people who were associated in some way with Marquette, real live women, to be the models for this piece. So how did you go about finding these young ladies to kind of be the inspiration for this mural?
Sure. Yeah. Those images that I first submitted were, just placeholders, basically, found off Google to just kind of show what the mural kind of would look like. But at the end of the day, I really wanted the mural to be site specific. And I think the best way to do that would be to actually find, real life, real time, students graduated who, from the university and incoming too. I think that's like kind of getting the full spectrum and stuff. And, getting these, distinguished women, on the wall, in this like professional photography setting. And so I knew that was the goal. We needed to have, incoming, current, and graduated students for, the photo shoot. And I have, I have some pretty deep connections here in Milwaukee. And I actually have a friend, unfortunately, who couldn't be here today, but her name is Karen Oliva. And she is one of the best photographers I ever met. And she's also a Marquette alumni. So I reached out to her and I'm like, hey, I think this would be a perfect project for us to collaborate. Would you be the honor to photograph, the models and, kind of start reaching out to, the Marquette community and stuff. And, she did it in a day. And then we were, this all happened within like 4 days. So like we talked on, Wednesday. She started to reach out on Thursday, Friday, and then we ended up shooting Saturday. So it was like this really cool, quick. And that's like the charm of, Milwaukee, how tight knit the community is, everybody, kind of knows everybody and stuff. So it's a little bit easier to communicate and organize. But so she ended up coordinating the photo shoot. And as you saw in that music video, the beginning was just kind of capturing, how we ended up, photographing these models. So.
Yeah, and I'd like to turn to one of them right now. Gadir, I know that you'll have to cut out early based on whenever your next patient comes in. So I'm going to ask you a few questions first before we turn back to Wasay. How did you end up becoming a model or inspiration for this mural? Like, what about the project spoke to you?
So it was kind of funny though. So my husband is actually also a Marquette alum, and we actually moved to Chicago shortly after getting married. But he just, one night we were just hanging out in the living room, and then he just randomly gets a message on Instagram, and it's like from a friend of a friend. Like Mauricio said, the Marquette community in Milwaukee is very tightly knit. Everyone knows everyone, somehow connected. So he had gotten a message basically talking about kind of the project. And I mean, I at the time, I really didn't get a full understanding of what it is, but we talked about it and we're like, that sounds pretty cool, and why not? And let's see where this takes us. And then kind of once we went in for that photo shoot and kind of fully understood and grasped kind of the whole concept of it, we were amazed because my husband came with me, and so fell in love with it just because him and I both love Marquette, and most of our closest friends were ones that we met at Marquette, and just kind of being able to know kind of the deeper meaning behind the mural, and how excited everybody was. And I wasn't able to join that paint day, but I kind of saw, I keep up on social media, so I saw the pictures and the videos of how excited everybody was, and it just kind of built up all of this excitement, just to be able to kind of signify and show the diversity of Marquette and all the people that are kind of intertwined, and we're all kind of close friends. So we went in there and it's like, oh, well, I had classes with you, or I think I know your brother. We went to Marquette together too. And so it kind of brought me back, felt like I came back home, because I spent most of my time there. And so I love that the most. And now after the mural was up, I had people, because I work different jobs on campus, and so I had old kind of supervisors and managers and bosses text me and be like, hey, not to be weird, but is this you? And so that kind of sparked up more conversation as well. And so it kind of holds dear to me knowing that, hey, I'm a part of that, and that's going to be up there, and all the students kind of coming in and out, they'll see that and kind of see the deeper meaning behind it. So I'm really excited to be a part of it, and honored actually.
I love that. I love that one of the unintended consequences of the mural was reconnection and like rekindling of old relationships. How beautiful is that? Mm-hmm. And I want to turn really quickly to something that you mentioned, which was around this concept of like, incoming students will see this and they'll see this representation up on this giant, beautiful wall. And during the voting process, a lot of people mentioned how pleased they were with kind of the intersectionality that was embedded into the project. The importance of celebration of people of color, of women in color, of making a population that's often invisible in our society more visible. So what about that spoke to you? Why is it so important to focus on women of color?
So me speaking as a female Muslim, going into kind of a Jesuit institution, it's safe to say that I stand out a little bit. In most of my classes at Marquette, I was the only, if not one of few women of color in my classes. And being also a part of my Muslim community, I kind of was a stepping stone for that, because now a bunch of students from our high school who are looking at different colleges, they look at Marquette and they seem intimidated because it is a predominantly white Jesuit institution, something they're not used to. And so for people or for students who are looking to go to Marquette, they've reached out to me plenty of times over the years and just been like, hey, like, what's the atmosphere like? What does it look like as a student of color? And how do I fit in? And what can I do to not stand out as much? And so by seeing this mural, it's like, hey, it is a little bit more open. And yes, maybe you don't look the same as everybody else does on campus, but there are plenty of people who came before you who kind of went through what you went through. And it's always a friend that's near or ready to talk to you if you need kind of any advice or any information or anything at all.
I love that. And that's just a really very natural segue into asking Wasay the next question. So folks like Gadir who've come before you, kind of paving the way at Marquette, how did you come to be a part of this project, and what drew you to the project and also to Marquette?
So we first got into contact with Mauricio 2019 of October, because I remember I was at a powwow and it was that Sunday. Sunday's the last day of a powwow, so like that will call the winners and everything. So I remember I'm walking out, I have my dresses and everything, and I'm getting ready to head home. And we're driving downtown, we see all this new art, and we're like, what the heck? Like, where is this coming from? And it's all, I think it was a Hispanic female woman that we saw in the picture. So we were like that would be so cool if we could have like a dancer, like an American person up there. So my mom got into contact with him and we were like, yeah, like we should try and plan something. But then we went with a long period of without talking. But then comes 2020 of like October, like early October, he texts us and we're like, he's like, hey, like there's this project coming up. Would you like to be a part of it? Like, would you be interested? So we're like, yeah, sure. So we meet up and we took our pictures and everything. And I never thought when we were taking the pictures, I thought, okay, like I'll be a small part of this. Like my face won't be up on the wall. And so as the mural started going up, we'd go at night when he wasn't working, we'd go check it out. And we see this big sketch and we were like, what the heck? So as he starts filling in the color, I was like, that's me. And I see my face. I was like, wow. So it all just kind of started when I saw the art going up more and more. And we were like, that'd be so cool. Like not myself going up there, but I was like, if another Native American, like this is a big Native American community, and we have the Potawatomi Casino, this was home to Potawatomi, the Ho-Chunk, the Menominee, so we were like, if we could get some type of representation of our people up, that would be amazing. So for this to happen, and then all of my family members from Michigan, they're like, hey, like, is that you? Like it started showing up on the news, and I was like, whoa, I did not know it was that big. And I remember I went down to the mural one day and a little girl that I know from ICS, she was like, that's you. She's like, I know that's you. That's your earrings. Like, that's you up there. I was like, wow.
Your dress.
So yeah, she's like, I know that red dress is yours. I was like, that's great. That's so cool.
What an amazing experience that must have been. And also, I love this image of you going at night to watch the progress. How cool. And Audra, what was it like as a mother watching your beautiful daughter's image being projected up onto this giant wall for all to see?
Yeah, so it was really unreal. Like, I guess we didn't know going in, like how big it was gonna be and even where it was gonna be. So like she said, we went to events on the Marquette campus before, but like going in, I was like, oh my gosh, it's like right there. Like we see students hanging out in the, like on the grass and like everywhere. Like they're all gonna see you, these 4 women. And then our young girls, when we go there, like how the young girl from Indian Community School was like, Wase, that is you. Like now she sees herself like, oh my gosh, I could go there. I could be a part of that. So that was pretty amazing. And my boys, we have 2 younger boys. They were like, that's my sister. Wow. It's very big.
I love that. I'm going to ask another question that's related to the theme of the mural. I want to know, who are some women of color who've inspired you? And we can start with you, Audra.
Some women that have inspired me, I like to think of our grandma Josephine Mendamin. She has since walked on, but so she is the water walker. And when I was carrying Wase, like we walked around parts of Lake Michigan with her, and she's walked around all the big lakes within the United States. She's walked coast to coast. She's inspired me to just keep on pushing and kind of no matter what, pick up that work that you're supposed to do, like do, I can't even think, sorry. But she's been such an inspiration for us to just keep on doing what we're supposed to be doing and bring the young girls in to help support each other.
What about you, Wase?
For me, it was my grandma Dee, of course, my grandmothers, and a lot of my aunties and grandmothers from my lodge. So Grandma Josephine and my mom herself. So I remember my mom was showing me pictures and she's holding me on her cradle. I'm in my cradle board that she'd used to carry me. And I'm like, what the heck are they doing? They're like walking on the side of the road and I see my grandma Josephine up in front. She has her walker and all these people are behind her. I'm like, well, I was like, what's going on in this picture? And it was one of the water walks. So me being a part of that and her watching me grow up, and our ceremonies, they go with the seasons. So we'll have 4 ceremonies a year. And so I'll be sitting there at the ceremony with her and she was like, yeah, I watched you grow up and you were at that water walk with me. And so she's been a big part of my life and me growing up. So I've always looked to her. She was always the woman in the lodge doing work and always trying to do the most work. So I look to my grandmothers and my aunties in my lodge.
It's so beautiful. I'm having like excuse me, I'm having a hard time keeping it together here. Gadir, I don't know if you're still there or if you've actually had to go on and see a patient.
No, I'm still here. I've got a few
Oh,
minutes.
wonderful. And same question. Who are some women of color who've inspired you?
I think there's a little bit of a trend here, but I think the only person that or I should say the most important person I look up to or someone who inspires me is my mother. She got married. She was born and raised overseas and got married very young. She was 17 at the time. And after being married, my dad's like, hey, my brothers are in America, so we're going to follow them over there and kind of try to get work and try to live a better life. And so she was uprooted and moved over across the world to a place she has no clue where it is or knows no one there, doesn't know the language. And she basically put roots down and started a family, and she had 8 kids, all right after each other. And basically she raised us all and she made us all who we are. And growing up, you know, she used to always tell us about how she was raised and how she always wants more for us. So even though we lived a humble life, but it always seemed like she gave us everything. And she always instilled in us, you know, like, you got to go for your education. You need to have goals and you need to kind of know and understand what your goals are and how you want to get there. And even though she had goals and aspirations for herself, she put everything on hold and put her entire life into all of her children. And she basically built us up. I mean, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for her. And I have a few other siblings who are older than me, and they're doing amazing too. You know, everyone graduated and they have these amazing jobs and they're married with kids. And so none of that would have been possible if it wasn't for her and everything that she did for us. I mean, I remember she would get letters in the mail and she wouldn't know how to read them or understand them. And we would have to sit there as young kids and try to translate for her, but she did the best she could. And I just hope one day when I have kids that I'm able to kind of give them that same feeling that she gave me and all of my siblings as well.
Yeah, I think that we can all point to an elder woman in our lives who've made us who we are, right? Like who have paved the way for us. And Mauricio, who is that person for you? Who are some women of color who've inspired you?
Yeah, I think I think we could always look to our, you know, mother figure for just, you know, being, you know, that supporting role. But, you know, professionally, I think Vel Phillips was a huge, you know, impact for me, you know, just researching, you know, Milwaukee and learning about notable figures here and stuff. But, you know, the list can go on and on, but, you know, you know, with this mural, I really wanted to focus on, you know, the youth and, you know, the next generation of leaders and stuff and how, you know, younger girls can continue to look at, older figures and hopes to like, be inspired and stuff. So, but yeah, I think, Vel Phillips was probably one of the first people that I kind of gravitated to when creating, public art and stuff and, what she stood for. But yeah, I mean, my mother figure for sure, she always supported me. Always, were able to, buy me crayons when I was younger and stuff and just things like that, that just like really showed her love and stuff. So she never said no, she let me paint my bedroom walls with spray paint, which was like crazy. But yeah, I was probably like 14 and, I thought that was really cool of her and stuff. But yeah.
Well, that's one special lady, because I'm not sure that I would have ever allowed my children to spray paint the walls, but that's a lot of trust that she has in you. How beautiful. And for those who aren't familiar with Vel Phillips was integral in open housing legislation. She was the first Black and first female Secretary of State of Wisconsin. Really, really important, powerful, integral figure in the history of Milwaukee. So yes, wonderful, amazing role model. So we are closing in on the amount of time that we have for our questions. So I'm going to get close to the last question here. And that is the theme for this year's Mission Week is Open to Hope. So how does this mural inspire feelings of hope for you? Or maybe how can it inspire hope for our campus and for our community?
Yeah, I could go first if that's okay. I mean, I'm sure everybody saw what the wall looked like before and what it looks like now. And I think that just transformation within, that 3-week period was, I think it was super cool to like turn in, this old, brick that kind of just reflected like nothingness really. And then being able to kind of go in there and then activate it with, this powerful art and just seeing it go up and then seeing everybody's response and how they're, just kind of basically receiving it. I think that's super hopeful. The fact that we took something and we ended up just transforming it during this dark period. And to me, I think that's pretty hopeful.
Yeah, I think the fact that it was born in a period of, really of darkness, right? That it is like this, like very physical manifestation of a more hopeful future. Kadir, if you're still with us, what?
I mean, if you just look at it, I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. It exceeded anyone's expectations, or maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but it is absolutely beautiful. And just seeing the diversity and seeing all these women that are on there, it really sparks a lot of conversation. And that's probably the best thing that it could have done, is that a lot of people were talking and kind of engaging in those like important conversations. And that makes me hopeful, because all of this acceptance and all this diversity is needed, whether it's just on campus or in Milwaukee in general, or anywhere. And so it makes me hopeful that there's just kind of a shift in time, especially during these hard times when the pandemic kind of makes us even more isolated than we were before. And so it kind of brings everybody back together.
And Wasay and Audra?
It's made me hopeful, but also comfortable knowing that I'm going into this school and that there are other women of color. So I'm not going into this school where everyone's going to be staring at me like, oh. So I get to go into this school and I'm like, okay, like I'll feel more comfortable making friends and discussing with, or like meeting other people. But also it makes me hopeful. When I was at that mural with my, her name's Brielle. She's a little girl that goes here to Indian Community School, I believe 2nd or 3rd grade. But being there with her and just seeing her look up at the wall, I want to see her continue on her education, and other little Native American girls, and want to continue their education and go to school and go to universities. And so it gave me hope in myself and confidence, knowing that, okay, I'm graduating high school and it's not just people I don't know there. And I know that I'm going to be supported wherever I go with my family, but also the women at the school. So, but also for these younger girls and younger generation, for them to go into high school and go into college or whatever they do, just knowing that they're going to be supported and hopefully that they're confident in what they do.
Yeah, it kind of makes it real. Like now that they can see themselves there and they know a person that is up on that mural and she's attending it. So it becomes real to our community.
Okay, thank you so much for these, I mean, really just astounding answers to all these questions that we've had. So I'm going to turn now to the participants, and I see that we already have one question in the chat, which I'll read. But if you have other questions, I don't know if there's like a raise hand feature on Zoom, I'm so used to Teams, or just throw it in the chat and we can read it out loud. So this is from Ben. His employer, Northwestern Mutual, is a strong supporter of both the arts and cultural diversity, and because of that, he's always interested in what or how we can accomplish this support even more. So the question for the artists and the models is, how important do you think employer and local business support of the arts and diversity is, and in what ways do you think it can be best accomplished? So maybe we'll start with Mauricio with this question.
Yeah, I think by just having, these conversations, allowing, businesses and, buildings and building owners to, allow, perhaps some of their vacant space to continue this practice of public art. I think, the building is pretty much it's pretty important in terms of like where the artwork's going to go. And I think, if we could continue to create and have these host walls to create, more works that touch on other issues, I think that'll be pretty important. But, in terms of support, just continue to have this conversation going, continue to support one another, whether if it's, like an event like this and resharing it and stuff. But yeah, I think that's, more of like the head-on approach and stuff.
Wase and Audra, do you have anything to add to that?
It definitely makes me feel more supported knowing that these businesses do care and that like Marquette University does care about the women, the representation of the women of color and them feeling included, but also them donating their empty walls and like the back of their buildings. It does mean a lot because it gives us the opportunity to share the story of our history and our ancestors, not just Native American, but anybody, and just to have that available and that knowing, go like tell your story and do that. Makes me feel happy.
So here's another question from Amy. She first thanks everyone for sharing your stories and inspirations. Her question is actually for us, Marquette folks. Are there any plans for some of this information to be posted online for others to be able to understand the mural more completely, maybe placing a plaque or a sign near the mural with a link to find more information? And the answer is absolutely. This is something that the mural subcommittee has been talking about. We're actually right now in the process of creating a podcast series, which I'm very excited about. This was actually in Mauricio's proposal, was that he suggested that we continue to spread the work in other ways connected to this theme of Our Roots Say That We're Sister, to celebrate and uplift and highlight the voices and experiences and stories of women of color. And so we have started recording. I'm very, very proud and happy to say that Sheena Carey, who is an instructor in our College of Communications, is interviewing a number of women of color who are faculty members, staff, students, and alumni. And we have 10 interviews set up, and those interviews will be recorded and housed on a website, and we're going to have all the information about the mural as well as these podcast recordings available to the public. We're going to be starting to roll out those maybe about once a week starting in early March, so stay tuned for that. So that's one thing that's going to come from this. All right, so we have a few more questions. There is, let's see, there's a lot of congratulations, and I asked Mauricio and Wase to read the notes and the comments. There's a question: are there posters or smaller prints of this mural available for purchase? And the answer is not yet, but we are certainly talking about that. That's something that we've had conversations about. And it would be wonderful, you know, to gift the models, the inspiration of the murals with prints of the murals. So we'll be looking into that as well. Are there any other?
A little to that as well. I'm Lynn from the Haggerty, and we've also talked about possibly like creating T-shirts and things like that. So it's a good reminder that we need to get back on that conversation quickly, because I think that would be really great. And obviously, people are interested in having some sort of, you know, souvenir or image that they can keep for themselves.
Good. Yeah, and we're seeing some positive responses to that. So folks are interested for sure. Are there any other questions for Marquette folks, for Gadir? I'm sorry, Gadir had to leave, for Wasay and Audra or Mauricio? Or the proceeds could go to a scholarship for women of color, even better. Great suggestion, Anne. If there are no other questions from the participants, I do have a couple of questions in my back pocket. And one thing I wanted to ask about was the Community Paint Day. So we talked about that really briefly earlier. Mauricio, can you tell us a little bit about why you decided to include that as part of the process?
Yeah, for sure. I think by allowing the community to come out and actually physically put their hands on the mural and actually paint it, not only is, you know, a lot of fun, but it also, you know, gives the people that live in that community ownership of the mural. So, you know, if they weren't able to, you know, physically be in the mural, I mean, there's other ways that they can, you know, create ownership of the mural. And I think by allowing them to, you know, come in and, you know, paint in a designated area, you know, I think that's really cool. I think a lot of people are interested in finding ways on how they can, you know, help create this mural, because it's going to be in their community. So why not have them, you know, help in create it and stuff. So yeah, but it's also super fun. I mean, like having all the people, all the personalities that day, like just come in, you know, you're just having these conversations with a lot of people, and ultimately it's connecting people that normally wouldn't be in that specific area, creating and sharing a moment basically. So it's fun. It's like my favorite aspect of the mural, because it just really brings the community together. And you know, just seeing, you know, people's attitudes and, you know, towards the artwork and the mission is just like the ultimate, it's just the ultimate feeling. So I try to include that practice in any mural that I create, and try to reach out to that specific community. But no, it was great. It was probably one of the best community paint days in terms of like numbers. And yeah, and we did it during a pandemic, which is crazy. And yeah, hats off to, you know, the leadership of the Haggerty and Marquette for just, you know, coordinating that day.
Yeah, and as Janine mentioned in the comments, opening to community is opening to hope. And so I think I'm gonna leave one final question. I'm gonna ask Wasay to answer the final question here. And Wasay, what are your hopes? What are your hopes for the future?
My hopes for the future. My hopes for the future are that that I can continue my education and continue to make my family proud. And I hope that a lot of younger, not even Native American, but just younger people of color will continue on that same journey, and that they'll continue pursue whatever they believe in and pursue their education. Or even if it's not education, if they want to quit school after high school, if they just go into what they want to do and what they believe in and they keep pursuing that, then let's hope they're happy what they do.
Beautiful. So I wanted to thank everyone for coming to today's Mission Week session, and really for engaging in this really robust and beautiful and important conversation. Again, special thanks to Mauricio, to Wasay and Audra, to Gadir. And I just want to leave you all with one quote that was from the feedback form that really struck me as hitting at the heart of this project. So the voter wrote, "Please let the painting be as powerful as it could be. Tap into the spirit and release to demonstrate the divinity, leadership, and abundant love of women of color. And I hope that we were able to do just that today. So thank you. Thank you all for being here.